Jungkook paced back and forth in the living room, his frustration evident in every step. His dark eyes burned with irritation as he stopped and faced his mother. Mom, what are you talking about? Why is she coming here? He demanded, his tone sharp. His mother, calm as ever, looked at him with a knowing smile. She wants to study at your college, Jungkook. That's why she is coming. Jungkook's jaws clenched tightly. Why does she want to study here? Doesn't she have better education opportunities abroad? Before his mother could respond, his father stepped in, his deep voice cutting through the tension. What's your problem, Jungkook? Why are you so against her coming here? Jungkook's hand balled into fist at his sides. I don't like it, Dad. You guys know how we were in the past. We fought all the time and then out of nowhere, you decided to get us engaged. His father raised an eyebrow. So what exactly your problem now? I need time, he admitted, his voice dropping slightly. Time to accept everything. I wasn't ready for any of this. I don't have feelings for her. His father sighed, his stern gaze softening just a bit. That's why we are giving you both this chance. When she comes, you will have time to get along before the marriage. Jungkook's frustration boiled over. Dad, he started, his voice rising. Before he could continue, a soft, familiar voice echoed from the main door. Auntie? The voice stopped Jungkook in his tracks. His clenched fist slowly relaxed and his eyes widened as if he had been hit by a wave of unexpected emotion. His mother turned towards the door, her face lighting up with surprise. One? Jungkook quickly swirled his head toward the entrance. There you stood with a bright smile and bags in hand. You looked at him, your eyes filled with warmth despite the distance and the coldness you often received from him. His father called out, instructing the maids to take your luggage. How did you get here, Ryan? You told us your flight was delayed by 2 hours. We didn't come to pick you up because of that. You laughed softly, shifting your gaze from his father to his mother. It's okay, uncle. Actually, I lied. I want to surprise you all. Your eyes moved back to Jungkook. He stood there frozen for a moment, his face expressionless, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of something he couldn't quite hide. His parents both moved to hug you, greeting you warmly. You embraced them back, feeling comfort in their familiarity. After the brief exchange, you extend your hand towards Jungkook. Hello, Jungkook, you said, your tone light and teasing, trying to bridge the gap between your childhood rivalries and your present. Jungkook hesitated for a second, his gaze shifting from your hand to your face. Finally, he reached out, gripping your hand a little tighter than necessary, testing you, expecting you to wince. But you didn't. Instead, you smiled, holding his gaze steadily. Surprised by your reaction, Jungkook quickly withdrew his hand, mumbling, sorry, before turning on his heel and heading towards the stairs. He did this because before, whenever you met, you used to squeeze his hand to annoy him. Now he thought of doing it before you could do, but he didn't know you changed now. You watched him retreat, a small, sad smile playing on your lips. He was always like this, distant, guarded, but there was something about him that you couldn't shake, something that kept pulling you towards him despite the years of playful animosity. His mother placed a gentle hand on your shoulder. Don't mind him, dear, he just needs time. You nodded, though your heart ached a little. I understand, Auntie. Upstairs, Jungkook stormed into his room, shutting the door behind him. He leaned against it, closing his eyes. As he tried to calm his racing heart, why did you have this effect on me? Why couldn't he keep his emotions in check around you? He walked over to his window, staring out at the garden below. His mind replayed the brief moment he had held your hand, That smile of yours, it was both infuriating and comforting. You had always been able to challenge him, to meet him head on with unwavering confidence. Back downstairs, you sat with his parents, sharing stories from your time abroad. They listened eagerly, asking about your studies and your experiences. At every now and then, your eyes would drift towards the staircases, hoping to catch a glimpse of Jungkook. After some time, his mother excused herself to prepare dinner, leaving you alone with his father. When his father began, his tone gentle and serious. I know this isn't easy for either of you, but we believe in you. You have always been strong, and I think Jungkook needs that. He needs someone who can stand up to him, someone who won't back down. You nodded slowly. I'll do my best, uncle. I just hope Jungkook can see that I'm here for him, not against him. His father smiled, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. He'll come around, just give him time. Later that evening, you found yourself in the guest room unpacking your things. As you placed your belongings in the closet, you couldn't help but think about Jungkook's reaction earlier. Despite his cold demeanor, there was something in his eyes when he saw you, something that gave you hope. Jungkook, meanwhile, lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. His mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, most of them centered on you. He hated the way his heart raced when he saw you, the way he resolved weakened when you smiled at him. Why does she have to be so persistent? He muttered to himself. But deep down, he knew the answer. It was because you cared, you always had, and no matter how much he tried to push you away, you kept coming back, refusing to give up on him. With a sigh, he turned over, closing his eyes. Maybe his parents were right. Maybe it was the time he stopped fighting this and started figuring out what it really meant to have you in his life. But for now, he needed rest. Tomorrow was a new day, and with it, another chance to find his way through the complicated web of emotions that tied him to you. You both got engaged upon parents' request because they want to convert their business relationship to family relationship. So you guys have to agree to it for the families. The next morning, the dining table was quiet except for the soft clinking of cutlery. You sat across from Jungkook, stealing quick glances at him while he focused on his breakfast, seemingly lost in thought. His father broke the silence. Jungkook, take wine to school with you today. Jungkook's head snapped up, his brows furrowing. Why? She can take another car, right? His father's stern gaze met his. She is new to the school, Jungkook. It's been 10 years since she left this country. Help her out and don't argue with me. It's an order, not a request. Jungkook sighed heavily, shaking his head. Okay, fine, he muttered, pushing his chair back. He stood, grabbing his keys from the table. Finish your breakfast and come. I'll be waiting in the car. Without another word, he walked out, leaving the room tense. You turned to his father, a concerned look on your face. Uncle, you shouldn't force him like this. His father smiled gently. It's okay, Van. This is normal for us. Besides, this gives you a chance to spend time with him. Let him see you're not his enemy anymore. You smiled softly, appreciating his encouragement. After finishing your meal, you hugged his parents, thanking them before heading out to the car. Jungkook sat in the driver's seat, his fingers drumming impatiently on the steering wheel. He didn't look up as he opened the door and slipped into the passenger seat. Let's go, you said quietly, fastening your seat belt. He started the car, pulling out of the driveway. The ride was filled with an awkward silence, the only sounds coming from the hum of the engine and the occasional rustle of trees lining the streets. Unable to bear the silence, he finally spoke. How are you, Jungkook? His eyes stayed fixed on the road, his jaw tightening. I'm bad. Your heart sank a little. Why? Because of your entry. He replied bluntly, his tone cold. You bit your lip, feeling a sharp sting in your chest. Despite the pain, you refused to let it show. Gathering your composure, you replied with a calm voice. Then you're going to have a bad day every day because I'll be around you. Jungkook's grip on the steering wheel tightened as he shot you an angry glance. You smirked, leaning back in your seat and thought, just because I love you doesn't mean I will let your words hurt me all the time, Jungkook. He looked away, his knuckles whitening as he clenched the wheel. Whatever, he muttered under his breath. You stared out the window, watching the scenery blur by, but your thoughts were a whirlwind. No matter how much his words hurt, you wouldn't let him see you break. You had decided long ago that you would only confess your love when he realized his feelings for you. Until then, you would stay strong, even if it meant enduring his coolness. The rest of the ride passed in tense silence, neither of you willing to break it. When the school gates came into view, Jungkook pulled into the parking lot, cutting the engine. "We are here," he said flatly. You nodded, unbuckling your seatbelt. "Thanks for the ride." Without waiting for his response, you stepped out of the car, closing the door behind you. Jungkook sat there for a moment, watching as you walked towards the school entrance. A strange, unfamiliar emotion flickered in his chest, but he quickly pushed it down. He shook his head, muttering to himself, "She's just as stubborn as ever." As you walked through the gates, you couldn't help but glance back at the car, hoping for a sign, any sign that Jungkook cared, but the car remained still, and so did he. You took a deep breath, steeling yourself for the day ahead. No matter how difficult it was, you wouldn't let Jungkook's indifference defeat you. One day you believed he would see you for who you truly were, not as the girl he grew up. For now, though you had to be patient, and patience you remind yourself was a strength you had learned to master over the years. With that thought, you turned back towards the school, ready to face whatever challenges the day would bring. After submitting your papers in the principal's office, you made your way to their classroom. As you reached the door, you took a deep breath before stepping inside. "Excuse me, sir," he said politely, interrupting the professor mid-lesson. The professor paused, looking up from his notes. "Yes?" "I'm a new student," you began, holding out the papers the principal had given you. "These are my documents." He took the papers, scanning them briefly. "All right," he nodded, then turning to the class, he announced, "Everyone, we have a new student today. Miss, please introduce yourself." You turned to face the class, a mixture of curious and indifferent faces staring back at you. Clearing your throat, you introduced yourself confidently. "Hi everyone, I'm Vine." As you spoke, a murmur spread through the room. From the corner of your eye, you noticed the girl with perfectly styled hair pat her friend's shoulder, interrupting her as she applied lipstick. "Yeah, Mia," she whispered loudly. "I told you she's the girl who came in Jungkook's car." The one called Ria pointedly directly at you, drawing more attention. Mia, clearly uninterested, snapped her compact powder shut and turned to look at you with narrowed eyes. After a moment of scrutiny, she smirked. "Her?" She scoffed, flipping her hair confidently. "She's not even close to being competition for me. Don't worry, Ria. Jungkook is mine." Ria giggled, reassured by Mia's confidence. Meanwhile, the professor gestured for you to find a seat. You scanned the room, your eyes landing on the only empty seat, right beside Jungkook. His expression remained stoic, but there was a flicker of annoyance in his eyes. Slowly, you walked down the row, feeling the weight of every gaze. Sliding into the seat beside Jungkook, you placed your bag on the floor. Without looking at you, Jungkook leaned in slightly, his voice low and tense. "Why are you sitting here? Do you want everyone to know we are engaged?" You turned your head slightly, meeting his glare with a calm look. "I have no such interest, Jungkook," you whispered back. "This was the only seat available." He exhaled sharply, looking away, his jaw tightening in frustration. A small smirk played on his lips as he focused on the board. The professor continued his lesson, but your mind wandered. After a moment, you couldn't resist leaning in again. Looks like no one likes you here. You whispered teasingly. That's why no one sat here. Jungkook's eyes flicked to you, his irritation evident. Really? He whispered back, his tone laced with sarcasm. Do you even know about my following in this college? You arched an eyebrow, pretending to be unimpressed. Following? You echoed, feeling ignorance. Jungkook smirked, leaning back in his chair. You'll see, he muttered confidently, his eyes glinting with a mix of pride and challenge. Choosing not to engage further, you turned your attention back to the lesson, but your thoughts lingered on Jungkook's words. It was clear he thrived on his reputation, and part of you was curious to see exactly what he meant. Despite the tension between you, a strange sense of familiarity settled in. You had known each other for years, but the dynamic had shifted with the engagement. Now every interaction felt like a battle of wits, a battle you were determined to handle with grace. As the lesson continued, you stole a glance at Jungkook. He was focused on the board, his features sharp and serious. Despite his girl demeanor, there was something about him that still drew you in. For now, though you pushed those thoughts aside, you had a long day ahead, and there would be plenty of time to figure out where you stood with Jungkook in this new chapter of your lives. It was lunchtime, and you walked down the hallway with your new friend Meena. You had clicked almost instantly after class, and now you are getting to know each other better. As you both strolled, your eyes caught sight of Jungkook ahead of you. He walked with usual confident stride, hands shoved into his pockets. But just as he reached the middle of the hallway, a familiar figure stepped in front of him. Mia. You slowed down, curiosity piqued, and watched the scene unfold. What now, Mia? He asked, his tone clearly irritated. Mia unfazed, handing him a strawberry milkshake, her signature bright smile plastered across her face. My small present for you, she said sweetly, batting her eyelashes. Jungkook let out an exasperated sigh. Mia, I have told you before, I don't like this flavor, and more importantly, I have told you to stop doing this. I'm not interested. Despite the clear rejection, Mia acted as if she hadn't heard a word. Okay, I understand, she replied, her smile never faltering. If you don't like it, what's the problem? I like it, so you have to take it. She placed the milkshake firmly in his hand before turning and walking away, her smile still intact. As she passed by you, she threw you a smug glance and flipped her hair dramatically. You frowned, feeling a wave of annoyance. Mia's attitude was irritating, and her blatant disregard for Jungkook's words only made it worse. Jungkook stood there for a moment, clearly frustrated. Then, without a second thought, he walked over to the nearest trash can and dumped the milkshake. His expression didn't change as he turned and headed towards the cafeteria. You exchanged a glance with Mina, who had been watching the whole exchange with mild amusement. Who is she? You asked, curious about the bold girl who dared to annoy Jungkook like that. Mina chuckled softly. That's Mia. She's one of the popular girls here. She seems persistent. You commented, thinking back to the milkshake incident. Mina nodded. She has a huge crush on Jungkook, but it's not just her. Every girl in this college has a thing for him. He is the bad boy heartthrob. You raised an eyebrow. Badboy Heartthrob? You repeated, intrigued. Yeah, she continued. He's got the whole mysterious vibe, the leather jacket, the attitude, the whole I don't care thing. He drives the girls crazy, but because of his reputation, most people don't dare to get close to him. You glance down the hallway where Jungkook had disappeared, so what's Mia deal? Mina sighed. She's been after him for a while now, always bringing him gifts, trying to get his attention. It's kind of her thing. She warned some of us to stay away from him. You frown. Warned you? Mina shrugged. Yeah, she thinks she's got some kind of claim on him. Like she's the only one allowed to get close to him. You crossed your arms, feeling a flicker of irritation in Jungkook. How does he handle it? Mina smiled knowingly. He's not interested at all, but Mia doesn't take no for an answer. You nodded, feeling the information away. So he's a bad boy heartthrob? You murmured to yourself, still trying to wrap your head around Jungkook's reputation. Mina nudged you playfully. Yep, and now you're in the mix. You chuckled lightly but didn't comment further. The two of you made your way to the cafeteria. The buzz of lunchtime chatter growing louder as you approached. Next day it was early in the morning and Jungkook was waiting for you in his car as he had been since you would started at the new school. You hurried over, pulling your bag over your shoulder as you climbed into the passenger seat. You noticed Jungkook wasn't starting the car. He was just staring at your wristwatch, a strange expression on his face. What's wrong? You asked, glancing down at your hand. Why aren't you starting the car? And why are you staring at my hand? Jungkook blinked, his gaze shifting back to the road as if he was caught off guard. Nothing, he muttered, his tone flat. Just wondering, why did you wear the bracelet today? You looked down at your wrist. It was your favorite bracelet, a collar bracelet with teeny beads that sparkled softly. Oh, this, you replied. I just really like it. Jungkook sighed heavily and finally turned the keys, starting the car. He began driving, but he looked frustrated, his grip on the steering wheel tight. You glanced at him confused. Why? You asked curious. He hesitated, then mumbled, I hate it. I don't know why, but it just bothers me. You couldn't help but chuckle softly. Oh, I get it, you said, nodding, but didn't push him further. His reaction, though surprising, made you feel like you were getting a glimpse of a different side of him. Later that day, during a class break, you found a quiet in your bench as most of the students went to the cafeteria. You sat there flipping through some notes. Even Jungkook went outside for his personal work. Suddenly, you notice someone walking up to you, a tall guy with a bright smile. Hi, Vine, he greeted you warmly. Do you mind if I sit here? You looked up and recognized him as Brad, the top student in your class. Oh, sure, go ahead, you replied, slightly hesitant but polite. Brad sat down beside you, flashing you a friendly smile. So, Vine, he began. You're from abroad, right? How do you like it here so far? You nodded. Yeah, it's been different, but I'm getting used to it. You replied, trying to keep the conversation light. Brad seemed genuinely interested. That's great. I imagine the school system must be pretty different too. You nodded again, starting to relax a bit. Yes, it is. The classes, the way things work. It's definitely a change, but I'm enjoying it. Brad chuckled. Well, if you need any help, don't hesitate to ask. It must be tough to adjust all at once. Just then you felt a shadow fall over the bench. You looked up to see Jungkook standing there, his expression dark, and his eyes narrowing as he looked at Brad. Brad, he said, his voice cold and hard. Brad looked confused and held his hands up in a friendly gesture. Hey Jungkook, I'm just talking to her for a minute. You can sit here when I'm done. But Jungkook wasn't having it. His hand came down hard on the desk beside Brad with a loud bang, making both you and Brad jump. I said get up from my seat, he repeated, his tone is deadly serious. Before I smack your head. Brad's face paled and he gulped. Okay, no problem. I was just, yeah, I'll just go. He stammered, quickly gathering his things and hurrying off. You watched Brad disappear down the hallway, biting back a laugh. Jungkook sat down beside you, crossing his arms and looking straight ahead, really annoyed. Why were you so serious with him? You asked, raising an eyebrow. He didn't look at you, simply shrugged and muttered, It's my wish. Then, as if nothing had happened, he lowered his head onto the desk, resting his cheek on his folded arms, his eyes closed, ignoring you completely. You watched him, a small smile tugging at your lips. You knew he wouldn't admit it, but his reaction spoke volumes. He had been jealous, and you could tell it. Inside you felt a warm glow of satisfaction. For the first time, it felt like you had a small victory over Jungkook. He might still be his cold, stubborn self, but this was proof he noticed you and that he didn't like seeing you. Turning back to your notes, you let him rest without another word. The silence between you was comfortable, and you couldn't help but smile softly to yourself, feeling like maybe just maybe things between you and Jungkook were changing. The evening was calm as you walked toward Jungkook's car. He was already waiting, leaning back in the driver's seat, his usual stoic expression in place. You climbed in, tossing your bag to the back seat, and settled into your seat. Jungkook glanced at your wrist before starting the car. His eyes narrowed slightly. Where is your bracelet? He asked, his voice neutral but curious. You looked at your bare wrist and then at him. Oh, I took it off, you replied casually, swiping through your phone. Why? He pressed, still not starting the car. You shrugged lightly. Because you don't like it, you said matter of factly. I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. For a moment, Jungkook didn't respond. He started the car, but as he drove, a small smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Inside, he felt a warmth he hadn't expected. You respected his likes and dislikes, something that no one, not even Mia with all her forced affection, had ever done for him. It made him realize the depth of care. As he drove, he thought back to how Mia would constantly push her own feelings onto him, ignoring his boundaries. Yet here, you were quietly sacrificing your own preferences for his comfort. The contrast was striking, and slowly Jungkook felt his cold exterior began to melt. You weren't the person he thought you were. You were someone much more thoughtful, someone who made him feel understood and cared for. A few days later, the college day had ended, and you were making your way down the corridor ready to head home. The sun cast long shadows along the hall, and most students had already left. Suddenly, Brad appeared in front of you, blocking your path with a determined look. Brad, you asked, eyebrows furrowed. What's going on? Why are you blocking me? Brad gave you a confident smile, his eyes twinkling. Without warning, he dropped to one knee, pulling out a bouquet of red roses. Wine, he began, his voice shaking slightly with nerves. I have been meaning to tell you this for a while now. I have feelings for you. I love you. You froze, your eyes widened in shock. Around you, the few students still in the hall sat in their tracks, whispering among themselves. Brad's sudden confusion had caught everyone off guard, including you. Brad, you stammered. What is this? I don't feel the same way. I'm sorry. Brad's hopeful expression faltered, but he quickly masked his disappointment. It's okay, Vine, he said, standing up. Take your time. I will wait for you. You shook your head, stepping back slightly. No, Brad, I can't love you. Please understand. But Brad wasn't ready to give up. No, Vine, you can. He insisted. I'm the top student in our class. I will have a great future. We could have a good life together after marriage. You frowned, your patience wearing thin. Stop it, Brad. Who said anything about marriage? Just stop this nonsense right here. Brad, however, wasn't done yet. He continued to plead, his words becoming more irritating with each passing second. That's when Jungkook appeared, striding down the corridor with a dangerous look in his eyes. He had seen enough. Without saying a word, he grabbed Brad by the collar and pulled him close. Can't you see she's rejecting you? Jungkook growled, his voice slow and threatening. Brad tried to hold his ground, though his face betrayed his fear. Who are you to interfere? He snapped, trying to push Jungkook away. I'm talking to her, not you. Jungkook's grip tightened as he yanked Brad closer, his dark eyes burned with intensity. She is my fiancée, he said, his voice cold as ice, and we love each other. Is that clear enough for you? The corridor fell into stunned silence. Everyone was shocked by Jungkook's revelation, including Brad, who quickly stepped back. His eyes darted between you and Jungkook. You nodded, confirming Jungkook's words. Jungkook turned his attention on to the onlookers. Let me make this clear to everyone, he announced. Wine and I are engaged. Don't even think about getting in the way of us. He grabbed your hand firmly but gently and started walking toward the car. As you passed by, you caught sight of Mia, her mouth hanging open in shock. With a small smirk, you closed her mouth with your finger, enjoying the look of disbelief on her face. In the car, you both sat silently. You could feel the tension in the air, but it wasn't comfortable. Finally, you broke the silence. Jungkook, you said softly, turning to look at him. Why did you say we love each other? He kept his eyes on the road, his grip on the wheel tightening slightly. Because it's true, he replied, his voice steady but soft. Your heart skipped a beat. What? Jungkook glanced at you briefly, then back at the road. Yes, man, I loved you for a long time. Since we were 10 years old, I just couldn't show it because of our constant fighting. He sighed deeply. Do you remember when you were leaving for abroad? I wanted to tell you how I felt, but then I overheard you talking to your mom, saying how happy you were to leave because you wouldn't have to fight with me anymore. You said you hated me. Your heart sank. That's true, Jungkook. I did say that. I was a kid back then, and I didn't know any better. But when I got older, I realized I miss you, not just our fights, but you. You paused, gathering your thoughts. When I visited Korea 5 years ago, I found your diary. I saw how you still had feelings for me. That's when I realized my feelings have changed. I agreed to our engagement because I wanted to be with you. Jungkook chuckled, a sound of relief and disbelief. Really? I thought you still hated me. I tried so hard to keep my distance, but it was torture. You smiled, feeling so warm spread through your chest. So you have loved me all this time? Yes, Ryan, he said, his voice filled with sincerity. I can't imagine my life without loving you. A smile broke across your face. I love you too, Jungkook. He smiled, a rare and genuine expression, and pulled out a small box. Close your eyes, he instructed. You did as he asked, excitement bubbling inside you. Okay, open them, he said. You opened your eyes to see a small, elegant box in your hands. Inside was a collar bracelet, identical to the one you had taken off. But I thought you hated this bracelet, you asked, confused but touched. Jungkook shook his head. You like it, don't you? If you can adjust to my dislikes, I can learn to like your favorite. I will start with this. Tears of joy welled up in your eyes as you threw your arms around him. Thank you, Jungkook. He held you tightly, both of you feeling the weight of years of misunderstandings lift off your shoulders. This was the start of a new chapter, one filled with mutual understanding and love. Thank you for watching.